Hi, welcome to the show. Today is our second episode of this Easter project. I have gathered 37 Christian entrepreneurs to share that one pivotal moment when they cling to God and listen to what He had to say for their business. They carried it out and what kind of transformation they have experienced. You will hear the behind the scenes story, how she started co-created with the Lord about kingdom-driven entrepreneurs community from zero to today. Over 500,000 of people have read her devotionals and joined her programs. Now, before we go further, I would like you to know we have created a booklet and gather all 37 entrepreneurs, their key lessons in one downloadable PDF file. So if you'd like to have this file, just go to kellybarter.com/Easter 2021. Again, that's kellybarter.com/Easter 2021. Now, let's check with Shae. Welcome to the show, Shae.
Hello, Kelly. Always good to be hanging out with you.
I know. It's very difficult to just not prolong.
You know how we roll, Kelly.
Our session, yeah.
Yes.
But we know, Shae, that you inspire, teach, and mentor Christian entrepreneurs to be led by God in their business so that they can experience His best and have a greater kingdom impact for the marketplace.
Absolutely.
That sounds awesome, and I'm part of the KDE family. But for those people, they don't know you. Can you kind of share with us a little bit about how did you get to here to do such a fantastic work?
Yeah, it was a total and beautiful God interruption of my life. Several years ago, I was in the middle of doing real estate investing, and I was consulting some people in real estate as well at the time. And it just ended up being like one of my friends in the real estate business said, "Hey, I met this woman. I really felt like I should connect you." And then I spoke to that woman, and that woman said, "I really feel like I'm supposed to connect you to this person." And so after a couple kind of divine connections, I meet a woman named Antonina Gear, who ends up being the co-founder of Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur. But Kelly, the crazy story, it's such a God story because here I am in the middle of doing my other business. No, like this kind of work was not even on my radar screen at all. But when I met Antonina, we connected in a way that I knew it was God, and I didn't know why we met specifically, but I just knew that there was something to our meeting. And so about a month and a half after we met, I said to her, we actually met today, 9 years ago.
Wow.
And I'd said to her, I've been feeling like God brought us together for something really specific. She goes, I've been sensing that too. And I said, well, let's pray about it and come back in a week and see what happens. So we did that, came back, talked about some stuff. It's like, no, it's none of those things. Let's pray and come back again. And I just knew it was something. And on the third round of that, she says, Shae, I had these words God gave me. They're in my journal. And I don't know what He wanted me to do with it. I don't know anything about it really, but the words are kingdom driven entrepreneur. And Kelly, when she said that, what flew out of my mouth, which was the Holy Spirit, because I had no idea what I was talking about. I said, that's a community, it's a movement, and it starts with a book. And so here, me and an essential stranger that just met a month and a half started praying and asking God, like, what is this thing you brought us together for? Like, what is a kingdom-driven entrepreneur? Are we kingdom-driven entrepreneurs? Like, what is this thing? And so the next 6 months was just these two strangers who quickly became sisters, and Jesus having lots of conversations about what this community and movement that started with a book is. And so we started writing, which was just so crazy. The whole thing was crazy. And at the end of 2012, we launched Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur. I mean, it's just one of those crazy stories. Our operating agreement was a total joke. It's like, so we had no idea what we were walking ourselves into. So it was like, well, if you die, this will happen. If I die, this will happen. We don't know exactly what we're doing, but it's a community, it's a movement, and it starts with a book, and the Lord will, continue to explain more, and we will update this document as necessary. So crazy and so out of character for me to do things like that. But when you have an invitation from God that is just completely undeniable, there was just something inside of me that said, even though this doesn't make a lot of sense to me, even though this is completely contrary to the way I do things, I just sense that that God's in this thing. And I don't know what's on the other side of this thing, but I just want to follow the path and see where it goes, And that's what it's, I mean, it's been like that for years, but that's how we started. That's how I'm doing the work that I do today.
Well, but for those of people that actually don't know today, the whole KD family, maybe you can kind of share a little bit.
Give a picture of today.
Give a picture. Otherwise, they don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's actually
they just see like a two crazy women just laughing.
Yeah, that's true. So fast forward several years. So that was 2012. Now we're in 2021. Since then, gosh, we've reached over 500,000 entrepreneurs all over the world through courses, devotionals, mentoring, all kinds of goodness. We have a great team, mentors. My husband just recently became the CEO last November. So now I'm more advisor, but still chief fire igniter. I still get to teach and mentor, and I love that. And so God has just really increased our impact, our influence in the space of, doing business in partnership with God. And it's just been the most wild and crazy and amazing adventure. And we're not done yet. I mean, it's, we're going to be 9 years old this year, but there's still so much, that God has shown us that we know is to come, because I believe that this whole idea of people, Christians who are in business, being able to do this with God is becoming increasingly more important. It's always been important, but it's not just like a pleasantry of, hey, here's an invitation before you do business with God. No, this is like hey, if you're serious about, you say that Jesus is my Lord and Savior, and you really want to have an impact, if you want, you want to embrace what it means for your assignment as a person who's a Christ follower, then you pretty much, you need to do business this way. And circumstances and situations around you will begin to dictate that you also need to do it that way as we go along. So I believe it's increasingly important. So having community around you who gets that, being able to shift our minds and our hearts from the typical way that the world teaches us about business is extraordinarily important. But it's also fun, and it's amazing to do things with God. The fact that he even cares to do this with us, that we have that invitation is the best ever. It really is.
Yeah, that's why I don't know where those people have been. I mean, they say that, be a Christian is very boring. I'm thinking that.
Listen,
they are in the different ride. I think they are different ride than ours.
Yeah. I think that when Christianity was religious, for me, it was boring. But when I embraced the beauty of like relationship, and then when I explored more of what it was like to do life with God, not just, hey, I'm doing all these things for the glory of God and checking things off the box or whatever, but no, I'm doing life with God. It shifted everything. Everything. And then you never want to do anything any other kind of way,
Yeah, exactly. So since you say, have been 9 years.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think it's all rainbow 9 years, is it? Like rainbow all the way, like you did not face any doubt, challenges.
I had all of the things, all of the obstacles, doubts, challenges, huge stretches in faith, disappointments, leadership challenges. I've done all the things. Yeah.
When those moments happened, I know, of course, different things, different way to do it, but generally speaking, how did you deal with it?
Yeah. Every single time it is lean into, first of all, I'd have to check if I'm believing any lies. So first it's checking my mindset and, what lens am I using here? So it's really doing a self-check on my own thought process and how I'm seeing things. So I'm often asking God to help me see things the way he sees them, like align my thoughts and my eyes and, my perspective with yours. And so that's always the first thing because I want to start there. And if I'm having a hard time getting there, then I've got to spend time. I've got to ask God to reveal to me, like, what is it that I'm not believing that I need to be believing? Like I have, and oftentimes he'll bring me to the word on something, or he'll lead me to have a conversation with somebody, or, whatever that looks like. Sometimes it's counsel from a trusted friend. Sometimes it's something he shows me in the word. Sometimes it's something he shares with me while I'm walking. Right. But I'm always going to God first because I want to see the situation. I want to see the perspective from his point of view. And I also want to know what's heaven's solution to the situation that I'm facing. Right. And so that's my go-to every time. It's just the way that plays out for me might look different. There's been times when the breakthrough happened when I had in a conversation with somebody. There's been times that the breakthrough happened when I was taking a shower. There was a time that the breakthrough happened, in the midst of prayer, or as in the word, and something just pops off those pages. That's like, that's it, right? It's even been in a book. I've even had solutions come, and I'm reading a book the book's not even about the topic that I'm dealing with, but God speaks to me through the pages of that book. That's not the Bible. So, I've had it happen all kinds of ways, but the bottom line is seeking him for his perspective. I want his eyes. I want his ears. I want his perspective, his mind concerning whatever it is that I'm facing. And when I have that, it makes it way easier to walk it out with joy, even when it's hard. And I've had 3 years of seasons of the last 9 years, I had 2.5 years that were very, very challenging in the midst of those almost 9 years now. But in the midst of it, I always had joy. I always had peace. Even if people would look at the situation around me and think, how does she have joy? How does she have peace? Like, how was she doing that? It was truly because I could lean into just the goodness of God, the faithfulness of God, just knowing that he's got it, as I'm working through it step by step,
Do you have I'm sure there's many moments. Do you have a specific moment that you can share right now? Say, there was a moment that I have to really lean to God and listen to what he say, and then shift the things around or situation around, while maybe naysayers around you or other all different kind of voices around you.
Yeah. So there's kind of two things that come to mind. One of them is financially. So there have been times within the finances where things are super tight, and now I've got a whole team. Like, I got all kinds of bills to pay, right? It's not just me who I can just say I won't take a check or whatever. It's like, I got all kinds of bills to pay, right? There have been times where I didn't have what I needed, but then God called for me to give. And it's like, well, you're calling for me to sow, but I'm like, I don't have enough, but I do know enough about the way God works to know that my obedience is going to be necessary in the matter. And I also understand the principle of sowing and reaping. So even though pure business wise didn't make sense, no sense, pure business wise, I went ahead and did it. And I watched how God multiplied what I sowed and made sure every single detail was taken care of. And that is not a one-time testimony. That is a multiple times testimony that I have experienced, that where it's just really like leaning into the truth, the kingdom principle, as opposed to the worldly business principle, and watching God be faithful and move in the midst of that, right? Because I'm operating based off of his way of being and his way of doing things. So I've got those things, but then I also want to share this one, if I can. Can I share one more?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, you can take another 3 hours. It's okay.
Don't say that to a storyteller. So the other thing that comes to mind, which it's not so much that we were in a position at that time that was very challenging, but we had been spending like 6 years of just kind of growing incrementally, just being faithful, showing up, and all of those things. And I remember when I was, it was in the middle of writing Grace Over Grind. Okay. Now that was my 10th book, but it was actually my breakout book. But it was my 10th book. Right. And I remember I was in the midst of writing that book, and the Lord said to me, you're not going to write this book right now. I was pregnant with my youngest daughter. And he's like, you're not going to write this book right now. He said, put it on hold. And he said, you're going to wait until after you've had the baby. And he said to me, there was something about this pregnancy that was important for the message in the book. I'm thinking, okay, I don't know what in the world could that be, but whatever, And so I was faithful to put aside something that I'd been living out for years. Like, I could have written the book. Okay. I was in the midst of writing this book. The Lord said, not now, not until the baby is born, because there's something about this pregnancy. And so I was like, I'll be obedient. I put the book down, didn't work on it. Fast forward, I end up having a completely supernatural childbirth, no pain, no medication, it was just absolutely crazy. But God used my childbirth story, which is in the book, but he used that story to not only teach me something, but also to then be able to have me share a story that gave an example of what it looks like to labor, work, to labor in his rest, with his grace and favor, and see how that not only impacts you, but impacts the people around you. And he allowed me to use that story in that book, which we get so much feedback about, just that aspect of the story, male or female, right? Man can't barely relate to the childbirth thing, but yet they really understand what happened. They understand what's happening here. So anyway, I waited, just like the Lord said. I waited, made sure that I was no longer pregnant, had the baby. Then I was like, oh, that's what you want me to do. Write the book, release this book. He had also told me that this book, that after you release this book, you will be the poster child for the message in that book. I don't know what that means, but I'm like, okay, I will be obedient. I'll wait. So I waited. And then after I released the book, Kelly, that's when everything in Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur took off. Like, we had just been slowly, diligently, just, being faithful. But after that book came out, I mean, even to this day, there have been books written since, and they still do not pace the sales of that book and how far that the message of that book has gone. And it increased everything with Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur. I barely spoken on a stage before that book came out. Now I speak quite a bit. Our revenue grew by 2.5 times. A handful of months after that book came out. The money that we were spending in advertising to attract people to the community and all of those things, we actually for a while didn't have to pay anything, because we were getting 10 times the leads for free, from YouVersion. Then, we put this Bible reading plan in the YouVersion and, in the YouVersion app, with no expectation other than to fill a gap that, hey, there's not a whole lot of people here talking about entrepreneurship and kingdom mindset. And so, hey, let's put this here. But then God just gave us such crazy favor with those plans. I mean, I have like 8 plans, but one of them, they sent an email about to their community. Another, which is tons of people. Another one they put in the first spot under the work category. I couldn't put it there. There's no SEO strategy to try to work. You can't pay for the spot. There's nothing that you can do. And that one little plan, of all the plans I did, that one little plan was like 80%. And now those plans have been subscribed to over 650,000 times, Kelly. It was God. It was nothing. I can't take credit for anything other than the fact that I was obedient to wait to write that book. And then for the timing to work out, for the person who connected me to do the YouVersion thing, for me to it was just be faithful and obedient. That's it. And that's all I did. And I did write the plans and I did submit them, but he took my little bit and he made a whole lot from it that we are still benefiting from to this day in terms of impact, influence, and income. Right. And so that's the other story I wanted to share. I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'll stop right there.
No, it's okay. Well, just yesterday or so, I was chatting with Tasha.
Yeah.
And Tasha talked about, I've been using that phrase, ROO is way better than ROI.
That's right. Your return on obedience. Yes.
Exactly. And then now there's another testimonial for you guys right
Absolutely.
here. And,
Absolutely.
It's, since this is the Easter project and I was led to do this, well, I mean, did not get a lot of notification, Lord, just about a week ago.
Right.
Put down everything that while I was preparing something launch. But when Passover time is really for me personally, it's always very significant time. It's really Jewish people, they will really clean up the house and then get away whatever unclean or things. Basically, they want to prepare their heart and the space to really can go into this new land. Okay, yes. So the breakthrough. So have that in mind, right? That's one of the key reasons why we're doing what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And Shae, what is the departing wisdom to say, okay, now we have here a lot of story by this point that people hear a lot of story about obedience, about really just listen to God and do what he said. So, but I think that stems from the intimate relationship with the Lord.
Yes.
Right.
That's the foundation for everything. I mean, if we're just operating out of just, I'm sitting around and waiting for what God's got to say. And, when God's got to say something, I'll go do it. It's like, it's coming out of an improper identity. And with intimacy with God, with spending just time in his presence, time in the word, just time engaging with God in the everyday, from doing that allows you to then get proper identity. And then when you have proper identity and you also have a revelation of his love for you, it allows you to trust him. It allows you to be obedient out of love, not obedient out of some weird kind of mindset around things, right? It allows you to say, you know what, I'm being obedient here because I know God has my absolute best in mind. He loves me and he's inviting me into his best. And so I want to be faithful and I want to be obedient because I absolutely understand as a son, as a daughter, as, that this is his best, for me as my father. And when you come from that place, that is a healthy place in which to move with God, to hear God and to respond. I've certainly been obedient before I had healthy identity with God, but that was but it was almost like that in those beginning stages, it was like he was kind of wooing me into relationship. Right. And so I had this reverential fear of the Lord that was healthy, but I didn't have necessarily healthy identity. But in the process of just getting to know him and getting to know me in him, that intimacy foundation made everything possible after that. That made it possible for me to exalt his wisdom that made no sense to me or the world around me above all else, and to go and move as he is showing me, right? Or as he is correcting me, or as he is revealing to me, right? It allowed me to do that in a healthy way. Having intimacy with him allows his love to cast out your fear. Right. So then you can be courageous and you can be bold, but all of this comes from intimacy. So that's the foundation of everything. It wasn't just the foundation for where it started for me. It's the foundation of where it is now for me. And it's the foundation of how it will forever be with me is intimacy with God.
And I know already that some of the people now listening to this or watching this will say, okay, so I'm too late.
No, you're still here. If you can listen to this or watch this, it's not too late.
And obviously,
you're still here.
Obviously, it's no accident that you are listening to this or you are watching this, that God is speaking to you, that it is not too late.
It is not too late.
Well,
start right now.
I cannot thank you enough to coming on the show. And can you guys just tell? We just cannot stop. But by the nature of the time, we have to stop because since we're not in heaven just yet. So, but thank you so much for coming on the show here. And we showed you a link, all the goodies from KDE in the show note. Thank you so much, sister.
Thank you. Love you.
How did you enjoy the conversation? I hope that you are encouraged, inspired, and energized to carry out that what God has called you to do in this season. Can I also ask a little favor? Would you please make sure that you subscribe either podcast-wise in iTunes, Amazon Music, Spotify, pretty much everywhere you can listen to podcasts to, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because the whole purpose of this Easter project and this podcast is to put Jesus back to the center of our business. So if you can share this podcast with others, with your fellow kingdom leaders and Christian entrepreneurs, we will really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss another video. And please share the videos with your friends so we can help more Christian entrepreneurs to rise up in the marketplace.